the worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's top experts in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Get ready to meet our next guest, a remarkable person who embarked on a transformative journey of self-discovery despite facing personal challenges, made the bold decision to walk away from a toxic work environment, 26-year career to pursue a higher calling with faith, determination. He answered the call to help others find their breakthroughs. His journey led him to LinkedIn, where he began sharing his life experiences, ultimately becoming a source of inspiration and hope for many. Join us as we dive into this incredible story of courage, faith, and unwavering belief of transformation. Don't miss this episode that'll leave you motivated and ready to embrace your own path of self-discovery. Welcome to the podcast, Michael David Chapman.
Lisa, how are you?
So good. It's so nice to see you. I love all the content that you're sharing on LinkedIn, which is where we met. And I can understand, based on what you share, that it's really based on a deep faith. How important is that to what you do?
Well, I grew up like that. So like a lot of people who have deep roots in faith, they probably got it from a parent. My mother raised 3 kids on her own. 2 of them, me and my brother, were not the easiest. No, we were hard, to be fair. So she was always in faith about her boys, for sure. Had us on the front row of a Baptist church. And if you're Baptist or you've grown up in the South in the evangelical circles, you know what that's all about. So going from adolescent into early adulthood and really trying to make my way in the world, faith played a big role.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know I was a bad kid myself, so it came from your mom and what she did. And I want to talk about what is like to you based on your faith. What is it when you're connected to God that can help you develop perseverance? We've all been disrupted, and that's what this interview is all about.
Yeah.
You're disrupted. How can we persevere and find the distance between our head and our heart?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I think about when you say it, I think about the end of Psalm 91, which is known as the Psalm of Protection. At the end of that thing, I mean, it's not a thing, but that's how I talk. At the end of that thing, David's speaking, God's speaking through David, and he says in the Message version, he's just like, "Listen, if you hold on to me for dear life, I'll get you through anything, and then I'll throw you a party." So there's this picture of a because I'm a man, I'm used to that. There's this picture of a man who's just holding on to God's ankle through intense challenges, self-induced or not, okay? Just hard stuff, person in the human race who's just going through the shiz, and you're just like looking up and you're holding on to this, in your head, this person, this force, however you personify God, you're holding on to their foot. Hold on to me for dear life is like, hold on to me for whatever phalange, whatever you can get your hand on. And then the way he lands that psalm is like, and if you do that, I'll throw you a big party. The second one I think about is, I think it's James chapter 3. where he's, James was Jesus's brother. And I mean, he is just lighting people up with he's just smacking you in the head with stuff. And so one of them that sticks out, James chapter 3, but that first chapter is where he's talking about perseverance and letting it do its work. Again, in the Message version, I think I said 3, but I meant chapter 1. Don't try to get out of anything fast. So there's 2 thoughts there. He's like, 1, let perseverance do its work by staying in the battle. Don't try to make it easy. And God's saying, but listen, if you hold on in the Psalms, if he's talking to David, if you hold on to me, I'll get you through it. So you're
Wow.
not going to go it alone. And when you do that, or when I've done that, I'm much easier to be around. You probably want to know me as a friend and maybe even help me in the non-spiritual world. But more importantly, it's a sense of peace, because that's really what we're all looking for. I don't care what anybody says. Every single activity we're doing is trying to find some semblance of continuity or peace in our lives, some type of version of stability, which underneath this peace. And so that's what works for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Michael, because I do want to know you. I mean, to me, you emanate that peace and that wisdom, kind of like Yoda or something. And I really love the content that you put out on social media. I noticed that, okay, relationships are hard. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
And they require that kind of persistence and patience and faith that to keep going and persevere. And I see that you are so encouraging to others to take that walk in faith. And do you have any relationship advice that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah. I'm just going to say
Okay.
yes. Do you want to know what it is?
Would you share it?
You say I try to yes. Next question. I think it's always the same thing. It's like relationship with people, whether it's a partner, you're in the dating space again, or even if you've been married. This is great advice that I learned the hard way, and that is really to learn how to lead yourself, how to lead your heart instead of follow it. Because we grow up, and I've said this a lot of times, and so if you've heard this before, me say this, I apologize, but I haven't said it with you, so I guess it's okay. The problem with follow your heart that we all hear, like starting when we're in adolescent life, college, whatever, it's really centered around, the world's big and you can do anything and you're talented and blah, 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 follow your dreams. I totally get that. The problem with that in relationships is, love is fickle, and follow your heart in the relationship space usually has to do with circumstances, right?
Right.
So the way I feel about you now, and you know this because you're married, I believe, right?
Right.
Is not the way you're going to feel in 5 years. It might be, or 10 years. It might be, but more than likely it doesn't. And so that's where, I forgot who it was years ago. Love is a choice, love is a decision. What was that guy's name? Gary something. He was like a Christian therapist. Love is a decision. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, no, it's not. You have no idea what I'm going through. It really is. So
Really?
learn how to lead yourself when if you're not in a relationship, because that's a game changer. If you can do that before you're in a relationship and before you're in a covenant relationship, what you might call a marriage, then you've got the muscle when circumstances aren't so good on the other side. And I didn't necessarily have that going into marriage.
Well, I haven't always had that too. And one thing I really appreciate about you and all that you share on social media is this raw vulnerability of like, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to teach you guys to learn from the mistakes I've made along the journey. And that really, I think, is why you have so many followers on LinkedIn. And I'd like to dive a little bit more into this topic of self-leadership, because I really feel like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I've definitely done all the things wrong in relationships before. So what does leading yourself in relationship mean? And how can you give our audience actionable tips to do so themselves?
Yeah, I'll speak to men. I mean, we're on the topic of like God and the Bible, and so I'll stay in that vein. I'm not a preacher. There was a point in my life, just to give some context. There was a point in my life, I grew up, underneath Charles Stanley, who passed away last year. And if you know that name in the Stanley family, like, it's one of the greatest Bible teachers ever, at least in my lifetime, this generation. So I didn't really, I knew the Bible, I had the Bible, but when I was going through my second divorce, it's the only thing that I had. It was like the Bible and alone time with Christ. That was it. And I tried to do a lot of things to try to remedy and medicate and do things, but none of it worked. So I read a lot, and I became more of a scholar. Like, I couldn't put it down. Anyway, so that's where a lot of this comes from. If you look at, like, how do you lead yourself? I'll speak to men. So when you're growing up in the church, you hear things like, wives, submit to your husbands, which comes out of, I think, Ephesians 5. All right. And then right after that is, in husbands, Paul's talking to the church in Ephesus. Husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. And so it's like, men and women, including myself, get wrapped around that. But before that, Paul speaks to both man and woman. He says, submit to one another before Christ. In other words, the relationship of where you sit or where you stand or where you may kneel before Christ is level.
Wow.
Y'all have different roles.
Yeah.
Y'all are level. Y'all are level. Man's not ahead of woman and all this thing. So growing up in I'm coming to your answer, I promise. This is a huge preface. I can't just answer.
No, I love it. Keep going.
So men, not me, right? Not me, but men who are A-type, Aries, not me. You hear that, and this idea of submission and wives and submission, a lot of that just gets out of whack with men who are out of whack. And certainly at one point I was out of whack. What does it mean in that second part to die? Right. So this is the answer to your question. To lead yourself for a man is to know how to die to this. Right. You're married to a woman, or you're dating someone who consistently loses her car keys. And you've gotten a phone call. Okay. You've gotten a phone call right before an important meeting, and she doesn't have her car keys, and it's snowing and and you love her, and you need to somehow help her in such a way and plant flowers.
Yeah.
Not just help her, but plant flowers like, honey, you can always call me, versus, try to get into this, what we condescendingly and disrespectfully say to men now, mansplain.
I almost said that myself. Yeah, I almost said that.
Right, which is its own set of hypocrisies, but that's fair, right? No, leading yourself is knowing that we've all been in those situations, and those small times in that relationship where you don't pull out a razor and do that cut of criticism. You and her look at each other like I'm looking at you now, and you're like, really? I'll be right there. Whatever. Like, versus like seeing it as a have to, it's a get to. And again, I didn't get that right a lot. I can only say that because I'm in the rearview mirror, and people say I don't have regrets. You should look in the rearview mirror long enough to pull the lessons. So that's a big one. I don't want to speak for women, but men, learning to die to yourself, die to your ego, die to what you could say. I've gotten that wrong a lot.
Wow.
But that's
There's
how
so much
it works.
wisdom. There's so much wisdom on emotional intelligence and really not reacting, but responding to the situation with love instead of with judgment. And I feel like it's so easy in relationship to get resentments when you are always sarcastic and you're always judging and criticizing, rather than take a breath, pause, and react with love. And the difference is you're married, you're committed to this person, right?
Yeah, I put out like things you just never send in a text. And one of them was, so not only are you going to offer to bring her keys, but then you say, sweetheart, I know you usually, it's 12:20, sweetheart, I know you usually have your Starbucks at 1 o'clock. Would you like me to pick up that drink on the way? And her drink is a quad long shot grande in a venti cup, half cup, double cup, no sleeve, salted. I can share my screen. It goes on for like this. I found this on where did I find it? I found this on a site. I think I found it on Reddit. I wanted to know the longest Starbucks order in the history of the world. Mocha latte with 2 pumps of vanilla, substitute 2 pumps of white chocolate mocha for mocha, substitute 2 pumps for hazelnut, blah, 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 blah. Like, not only am I going to bring you the keys, but I'm going to go through the misery of reading that in a drive-through.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
yeah, that's a dude, that's a guy, that's a man, and a woman too. A woman that can do that when our frailties show up in relationships, that's an example of leading your heart. Because following it is to let them know, you have a problem, Lisa, my love. You can't keep your keys. So, and then maybe the joke at Christmas time or for Valentine's Day, because that's coming up, is you get something, it's like a key finder. I mean, there's a lot of examples. That's a very benign example that becomes a big issue because he or she or he, little razor cuts.
Yeah.
So that fabric of respect. And, I was guilty of that. And I received that too. To be fair, I received that too. So
I've been guilty of receiving and giving the judging and the sarcasm, and it does cut and it does do permanent damage. So there's so much wisdom that you've shared in this interview here on.
follow your heart is I'm not in love anymore. I'll give you the biggest one. I don't feel I'm not in love anymore. When you made those vows, it wasn't if you felt like you're in love anymore. I saw one the other day, and it's awful. It's just basting that it's this generation. Who is this generation? When you see these meetings, this generation is this. It said this generation, and I may use this generation turned till death do us part into till I'm bored. That's an example of follow your heart.
Right.
Leading your heart is no. I told you till we die.
I love that. It's commitment, it's persevering, it's like keeping your word. And I value that so much about the values that you hold in your faith and in your relationships and in your vulnerable share. Any final words you want to leave our audience with on being disrupted and charging forward anyhow?
Well, that's disruptive now because that level of loyalty is something out of outer space. And what I mean by let's come out of like boyfriend, covenant relationship, just loyalty with friends. Being able to not keep a secret, but keep your mouth shut. Being able to practice a sense of temperance with people you hold in high regard, and not always tell them what they need to hear. There's a time for that. Sometimes it's time just to listen. That's a lot of lead your heart. And
Wow.
that's a battle. That's a battle for all of us, especially when you have an ego that you're always trying to keep in check. And I'm the first in line on that.
We all do.
We all do. Intelligence is a one last thing. Intelligence, I'm gonna say knowledge can be a trap because it can be a weapon. And so if you're following your heart, you'll weaponize knowledge. If you're leading it and you have faith, you'll say, here's a good Lord. Do I have permission to say that? If more people who said they had faith, who follow God or learned how to say, can I have permission to say that? They'd probably say a lot less stupid things starting with me.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Michael David Chapman. Where can people find you? I know I follow you on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm at Bizmin Works, BIZMIN Works on Instagram.
Bizmen Works. I'll be following you. Thanks for your wisdom bombs
This
today.
is awesome. Bye.